go back to Sale first. You said after that game you saw a different side to the boys. You know, they really dug in last week. It was brutal, wasn't it, at times up there?
I mean, I thought there was some really interesting moments during the game. I mean, one of the actual key moments during the game, and I wonder sometimes whether the players actually sit and watch the game and really appreciate it, was there was a period of play. I think it was one of our longest periods of play that the balls have been played this season. I think it was over 6 minutes with the ball not going out of play, and it started with us kicking off, as then having to defend our try line for quite a number of phases before we eventually created a scenario where we broke out and ended up with Sean Lonsdale's score in the second half. And when you actually look at that as how we've weathered a storm, put defensive sets together, fought back after a line break, got ourselves into position to then decide to attack with some energy and fervour and then finish it off, that shows a lot of really strong character and a lot of really strong kind of mental attributes as well as good physical attributes. And those are the things that it was important we talked about and we celebrated, because ultimately they're the things that will win you a lot of games. You know, that desire to keep working hard, keep fighting, and not kind of take the easy way out. And the easy way out is giving up a penalty or kicking the ball off the field or doing anything just to get the game stopped. And I thought it was great credit to the players. You know, they fought through a really hard passage of play and came out with the try at the end. And for me, that's kind of what it's all about when you talk about being a really good rugby side.
And how encouraged are you with the strength of the squad? You're missing 6 or 7 guys, Six Nations, a few injured as well, but others are really stepping up and taking their opportunity.
Yeah, and I think we are coming through a bit of a difficult injury period relatively well. We are starting to share some game time around. As I said, this week we have got a couple of players back who we didn't necessarily assume we would have back. I think we probably didn't assume we'd have Sam Skinner back by this stage, and we certainly didn't assume we'd have Harry back. So having those 2 guys back and potentially involved in the squad is fantastic for us. And looking at how the guys who've been in and around the squad in their positions have played, it is kind of fantastic really. And to get through last week's game relatively unscathed, considering how physical it was. We've got some bumps and bruises, and we've got guys on limited training, as you do after tough games. But on the whole, I would like to think if we can get through this game against Worcester into a week's break next week, we can then the following week welcome back our internationals, and we can have a full squad here, and we can start talking about how we want to accelerate our game through towards the end of the season. Because if you look at the makeup of that top 4, Harlequins and Gloucester are by no means out of the race for the top 2. We've got to really get our heads down and knuckle down to collecting points. The last thing we want to be doing is get into the last round or 2 of the Premiership, and we're looking around and we haven't secured what we want, which is the top 2 spot. We've got to work very hard to make that happen, and that's the big credit I can give to the squad at the moment. Is we worked extremely hard against Newcastle, we worked extremely hard against Sale to collect some very, very important points, because the teams below us are collecting points. Harlequins are collecting points like nobody's business. They've not given up the top of the league as a challenge for them, and so we've got to make sure that we keep, like I say, we keep working hard, keep our heads down, and we keep collecting points.
And do these blank weeks, like next week and ones that come up in the not too distant, does that mean you can tell the guys to really go out and empty their tanks and in these games,
yeah,
and then they can have a little recharge?
I think naturally that happens a bit. I think the guys know they're going to have a couple of days off. I mean, we're not going to give them a week off next week. They're going to come in and get some training done, but they're certainly going to have a couple of weeks off at the start of the week, and then training will be based around some performance preparation for further down the line. Then they'll have a nice weekend off, and then they'll be back in getting ready for Bath. So it can be a nice period that you can really start to maximise your performance abilities. But I'd like to think that we can look at this as a block where if we went and got a win at Worcester, we could look at it on it with some satisfaction. A block of 4 games, 3 away from home. If you can get 3 wins out of 4, you've done a pretty good job. That's the kind of form that it keeps you where you want to be in the Premiership, and that's what we've got to fight to make sure happens.
Thank you.
Tremendous.
All right.